Graham Hunter is with us. Graham, good morning to you.
Morning.
You're alive and well after your sojourn in Dublin at the weekend?
No comment.
You made it home anyway.
You were part of it. So if I wasn't, it would be partly your fault. Fabulous night at Liberty Hall. Great to be back in Dublin.
Yeah,
really enjoyed
a
it.
Brilliant documentary as well. I'd totally recommend anybody get their hands on it wherever and whenever they can. And those DVDs are coming out soon, I hear.
They are. Oh, Chair, I'm going to get you for that next time we're together.
I want to talk about José Mourinho. We were talking about the game last night. I'm saying, poor Marwan Fellaini must have been thinking, there you go, I've scored the winner in the last minute. I'm going to be all over the back pages today. But no, it's José Mourinho and his celebration, the narcissism at work again. But there's been further details emerging of the Iker Casillas spat this week.
Look, you watch Mourinho and you think, what will he do next to tarnish his legitimate reputation as one of the coaches who's taken us into a modern era of how you play the Champions League, how you create an aura of infallibility domestically at whichever of his clubs you want to do up until now. And then he comes out with this gratuitous, I can't help myself childishness by saying pre-match admittedly that in his view, there's a specific reason why David De Gea is under examination, internationally at least, for his international performances back in Spain. And Mourinho leaves absolutely no doubt whatsoever that what he means is that a very powerful figure, Iker Casillas, is pulling the strings, and Iker Casillas is behind it all, because it came out in an interview that Casillas was hopeful that his Spain international career wasn't over. And what's happened is that while he's been at Porto, his goals against tally has gone down. He's been playing very well. Porto have renewed him. He's looking good for his age. And it's well within his right to say, well, I hope my international career isn't over. And Mourinho, just in another episode of him blithely saying that everybody in the world is out of step except for him, suggested that the reason that De Gea was, again, under the microscope, was that Casillas was orchestrating this. Completely ignoring the fact that while David De Gea continues to be exceptional at United and did something last night that made sure, almost as cleanly as Fellaini, that United are in the knockout stages, internationally, David De Gea, who's a man who has always robustly accepted constructive criticism, and is one of the players who least resents people pointing out this could be done better, that could be done better. He's actually very grown up about that. Mourinho has now put De Gea in a situation in direct opposition to Casillas, where the media are now going to be looking for De Gea's reaction to this, drawing him into a mess that he wants no part of whatsoever, and also ignoring the fact that David De Gea, over several months now, could have played at a higher level for Spain, hasn't been making the kind of saves that I think he would want to be making. And therefore, Mourinho has just gratuitously stoked his own feud with Iker Casillas, not thinking once about his own goalkeeper at club level and whether that's for his benefit or not. And I want to say quite clearly, it is not for his benefit.
Why does he do that, Graham? Is he addicted to chaos? Because he's done it so often throughout his career that he picks needless rows.
Watching, how can I say this at breakfast time carefully? I think if you immerse yourself as a camouflage in a certain strong-smelling brown substance, it will eventually leave you smelling of that permanently. And you're right. He's used these inflammatory, provocative darts of his to very good end throughout his career. And now that, he is pretty much the spoilt golden child who, when things are going against, will pick up the ball and run away and say, well, it's my ball, I'm not playing. And I honestly, that's what it feels is going on right now, because things are going against him for several months, because he was, brutally criticised by many people for what happened at Chelsea, the way in which that fell apart for him, the way in which he left them no option but to get rid of him, the fact that he is underappreciated at Manchester United, the fact that he's not winning the big trophies or even competing for them, the fact that he has a little bit of a mixed relationship with the guy who buys the players from at Manchester United. This has left him I think gratuitously, that's the word, swinging left, right and centre. And you're right, he can't put the brakes on. And I think that it's because these things which were gratifying to him, which worked for him strategically, often worked to the value of his squad and his players, are now weapons that he can't resist recurring to, irrespective of whether they work, whether they have common sense. And he is involved in far too many tit-for-tat battles, which are not to the benefit of either his club or his squad, or the last thing in his mind, his fan base.
Can I just ask you, a lot of the Man United fans, when the debate comes up about who's going to be next, they're like, oh, who's going to replace him? Give me a better name. Surely there are loads of people out there who could actually do the Manchester United job and have a coherent, consistent plan that will fit in with a club that at least pretends to have an ethos.
I agree with that point. If you're tempting me to name one or two, I could, indeed, maybe I will. But I think that we're grown up enough on your show for the many years that I've shared this platform with you to understand that when you have problems like Manchester United, we've been talking about the problem of José Mourinho, who I'd say again, I'd love to be able to respect much more because of not only what he's achieved, but in the past, how he's achieved that. But the problem at Manchester United is patently greater than José Mourinho. He is symptomatic of how there isn't a check and balance to slap down the manager and say, this isn't how we behave at a big club. I don't want you saying that. Concentrate on your work. Stop creating fractious relationship with key players. When Marcus Rashford misses a chance, support him rather than make it look as if you'd like to take him in and slap him around the ear. The problem is the way in which the owners run the club, the way in which Ed Woodward isn't particularly qualified in certain departments to run the club, and therefore what's wrong, Ger, isn't simply saying before Napoli appointed Ancelotti, United should have had him as the perfect candidate to unite all the playing resources, to win the media over, to bring his experience of European trophy victories and the Premier League victory to Old Trafford and use Ancelotti's wisdom and knowledge to buy time, to groom more long-term candidate, to help build the right type of squad in the market. That was one big choice that, for me, I've got absolutely no question that they got wrong. Admittedly, they tried for Ancelotti and not persuaded him before, but then didn't go back. They should have done. There are other candidates, but there's a systematic problem at Manchester United that goes beyond José Mourinho. And it's natural when you lose fabulous resources. The club is run by owners who have a certain goal, and that goal isn't necessarily in tune with what the fan base wants.
After the game last night, Graham, Mourinho talked of, he said, I've qualified 14 times for the knockout stage of Champions League. The other 2 seasons, I won the Europa League. That he's obsessed with his own record, and he had a little dig at pundits as well, people with using touchscreens, etc., without naming any names. When you get to that level of self-absorption, is there any way back? Like, he seems now, like we saw this a few months ago when he was pointing out that I've won the Premier League more than all the other managers put together, that he's like sitting at home going over his own stats and just grumbling to himself all the time. He gives that impression anyway.
Yeah, there is a level of, it's not delusion because it's fact, but there is a level to which he is one-eyed about how to win a battle. The way to win that battle that he's engaged in is to prove everybody wrong rather than by proving what everybody already knows. It's remarkable to watch the guy who was so fashionable, so chic, so funny, so admirable, particularly in his early stages at Chelsea, where he became a national icon. His nickname remains iconic nationally in the UK and Ireland. And to watch the way in which he glibly is dismantling his own reputation at the very same time as he tries to patch it up by repeatedly not only listing his triumphs, but using that personal pronoun which you associate so closely with José Mourinho. But the three of us know, if we're going to talk bluntly, many managers think like that. I did this, my record. Pep Guardiola, as hard-nosed and as, how can I put this, not arrogant, but absolutely crystal clear about his own worth. As much as that, he fundamentally understands that without the right players, without the right system, without the players buying into his words, he will fail. And he routinely, not just as little candy for a baby, says it about his players out loud that were it not for them, he'd be nothing. He wouldn't be doing this. He's the polar opposite of José Mourinho, albeit his ego in a good way. Every leading sportsman or woman obviously needs that ego. His ego is as powerful as it's strong, but it's reoriented, and therefore I think the comparison across the city, not just the football styles, is very, very stark. And there's no question that point you make is for those on the borderline in his squad who could be giving more, performing better, feeling more confident, feeling more unified, feeling more loyal. That point that you make that might jar on you, that seems out of sync with the great managers we've watched in our time, particularly in what they say publicly, think what it's doing to those who might be making him closer to the top of the table in the Premier League, those who might be bringing him towards a run towards the quarters or the semis of the Champions League. I think he's doing himself, but also his squad, damage.
One last thing about tonight's games. The Liverpool PSG game is probably the most interesting of the fixtures. We still haven't seen the most expensive strike force in world football history properly fire at a European level. Surely it's going to happen at some point.
Are you talking about PSG's front three? Because the front three that they're facing might not be the most expensive, but I think they can be as enjoyable. And again, it's a team game, Ger. If Liverpool are sleepy, if Liverpool underperform, that night that you're talking about might happen if Mbappe and Neymar are fully fit, and if Cavani and Neymar don't end up punching each other's heads off after their recent spat between Brazil and Europe. But above all, the reason that maybe this Cavani, Mbappe, Neymar thing hasn't yet knocked us all off our seats is the fact that it's an uneven team. Yes, at the Parc des Princes, if Liverpool don't perform, there's a threat. I personally think Liverpool can and will draw or win. That's my opinion. I know they're not firing on all cylinders yet, but I think that this is the type of big night that the pain of Kiev will come out, and the group unwillingness to let that experience scar them for life, I think will be shown in the French capital tonight. And the difference between Liverpool and Paris Saint-Germain is that front three that you talked about, which is beautiful to watch individually and coherently as a trio, isn't necessarily supported by the best defensive midfield or defence. And Gigi Buffon has become fallible. And therefore, Paris Saint-Germain, it can thrill us. It's an extraordinary trio. But do I think that Liverpool have a chance of getting the result they need tonight at the Parc des Princes? I genuinely do. And also, I hope they do.
Good stuff, Graham. Thanks a million. Talk to you soon.
Cheers, Graham.
Graham Hunter with us.